Who is the 2024 WWE Men's MVP? I'm Will. That's Brandon. We are the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast. As always, let's cheers. Talk about some wrestling.
This is going to be a good one, I think. A lot of good options. Oh, man, he's excited for this one.
MVP.
Yeah, I mean, it's the year of the calendar, year of the end review, I guess, for the calendar.
Yep.
Why not tackle it like they do in regular seasons, I guess, regular sports, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be an MVP. You know, we got weekly television on 365 days a year, basically, for wrestling. It's good stuff. We got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. I'll do my honorable mentions first.
Wow.
What, you don't want to go first?
No,
you
go
want to
right
first?
ahead. Go right
you
ahead.
want to go first?
No, go right ahead.
I'll lead.
I went first earlier.
You did. Chad Gable. Honorable mention here. Talk about the year of Chad Gable. He absolutely proved that he's an all-around guy. He can do it as a heel. He can do it as a face. He is that dude, and he can definitely do it in the ring. Obviously, didn't win any belts, accolades, stuff like that.
Didn't really win any feuds.
Didn't really have an end to any of his feuds. Can't give him the MVP there. I do want to point out, this is my biggest one probably. Mm-hmm. My biggest two honorable mention of the MVPs this year that I am not putting on my top five. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns do not make my top five in the MVP list. And people are going to go, what the hell? I'm tuning out. Don't tune out. I'm giving you my reasons why. Mm-hmm. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns both had phenomenal starts to the year. Obviously, Roman did the job for Cody finally. Absolutely incredible. And he's finished the year kind of strong. Mm-hmm. Seth Rollins, same thing. He was the MVP of WrestleMania 40 by a long shot. Yeah. I mean, dude had no knee. But we're treating this kind of like we do, other sports. They both missed a ton of time this year. Yeah. A ton of time. Roman completely earned. Seth completely earned. Both for different reasons. Roman, he just had his stint. He needed to go time off. Seth Rollins, big time injury. And for that reason of the massive time off, they're out of my top five. Go for your honorable mentions.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I didn't even think about putting them on my list realistically.
Wow.
And you might have seen me just typing onto my phone for my list, making some quick adjustments, some cuts, some pace. There's a lot of really good options here in terms of just MVP, especially like the single stars. We talked a little bit about how the tag teams kind of struggled this year. The single stars really, I thought, came through.
Yeah.
So for my honorable mentions, I've got Sheamus.
Okay.
Because it was just banger after banger after banger on Monday night. You don't need to put him in anything. Just go have a hard-hitting match. Give me 15, 20 minutes. I like to see that. I had L.A. Knight.
Yeah.
Somebody that really kind of carried that U.S. title scene, that mid-card scene, and honestly carried SmackDown for a while. Coming off the Logan Paul stuff, we really needed somebody to kind of shine through. And even honestly, at points, that U.S. title picture was looking a little bit more exciting than Cody's at times. I have two more honorable mentions. Well, actually, I lied. 3. I just didn't write one down.
I have a ton too.
We got Dom.
Yeah.
I have to talk about Dom.
Dirty Dom.
Dom didn't have enough personal, I guess, achievement or really even that many matches, but Dom's character work, he helped progress the women's title scene as well. It's got to be Dom. It's got to be Dom. Jey Uso. Did not make my top 5, but he made my honorable mention list. Yeah.
Yeah. Throw tomatoes at him.
Tough. It's not as if I didn't love what Jey Uso did this year. Jey Uso far exceeded my expectations and what I thought he could really do as a singles competitor. Didn't think he would get as over as he did.
Oh, man.
Didn't even know if he'd get an IC title run. But you know what? Seeing that crowd each and every week is my honorable mentions. Lastly, honorable mention, it's Braun Breaker.
Yep, I have it.
It's not his time yet to crack that top 5. There's still, I think, too many people. But what he's been able to do, he's shown this year that he is the future. And you kind of have to just mention him.
Only guy that you didn't have that last honorable mention. Sorry, there's just been a lot of good people this year. Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn's outside my top 5.
Yeah.
Sami Zayn's
fair.
Outside my top 5.
That is fair.
I put close but no cigar. It's basically that. He did all the work that could make a top 5 list. I just personally had his
vendetta.
His Intercontinental title reign was not interesting to me. I thought that his promo work during that time was just literally the same thing week in, week out. I didn't like the early wins he had over Braun Breaker in the fashion that they did it in. Luckily, Braun Breaker is the man. He got kind of out of that hole that I thought that Sammy dug. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, he kind of went back to the Bloodline stuff toward the end of the year, which kind of clouds my stuff. But, yeah. You want to go number 5 first or me?
I'll go 5 first.
Go.
Because I feel like my number 5, when I talked about reordering and reshuffling, number 5 is going to be CM Punk.
Yeah.
Have him at 5.
I don't know why I said that.
Clobber in time. I don't know. CM Punk, not much else needs to kind of really be said. I thought he was in feud of the year. Coming back to WWE, he had a lot of question marks. You had he's coming from this other company. There's some weird things backstage there. Did those things really happen? Is he a cancer backstage like maybe we thought before? He's getting older. Can he still go in the ring? Can he still cut it on the mic? A lot of questions in terms of CM Punk. They put him in there right away. Once again, he showed right away to me that he is still a top guy. He's not going to be able to go in the ring like he once did. That's okay. His ability to carry feuds on the mic outside of it makes up for it for me. Like I said, feud of the year, and there's so many different things branched off of this that you can go, okay, well, he's intertwined with Rollins, and maybe he gets that title. Does he get that Mania main event? There's so many different ways that you go now. I got to have him in my top 5.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that. You're going to hear about CM Punk. He's not he's not at my number 5, but he is going to maybe show up in this list a little bit later on. But everything you said about him is absolutely spot on. But I'll continue that conversation when it comes. At my number 5 spot, Cody Rhodes.
Ooh.
Number 5 is Cody Rhodes to me. Number 5 is Cody Rhodes. 5. He's a QB of the WWE. I guess self-proclaimed QB. You hear Kevin Owens say that nobody called him QB until he stitched QB on his own
He's
shirt.
Self-proclaimed QB, but also if I'm picking somebody to be my QB, it's probably going to be Cody Rhodes.
He's the top guy. He's 24/7 available. He's your new age John Cena. He's a guaranteed 4 or 5-star match every time he's in the ring. I can't say enough good things about Cody Rhodes. He had his moment this year. People are going to be like, well, you say all this. How is he not the MVP of the year? I think that once April hit and they put the belt on him, he took a big step back, not in terms of his match quality or anything like that. I think WWE failed him a little bit this year in their booking. I just don't think that they had a full plan for him. I think the AJ Styles back and forth rivalry where they had one match and then Cody went somewhere else for a month against Logan Paul and then back to AJ Styles was I thought pulling him back to the Bloodline story was a total just wrong move, even though it was cool to see Roman and him together. I think that in a way this year kind of proved that Cody is just more interesting when it's the Bloodline stuff. And to me, that just that really takes away from his MVP status.
Yeah. Can't disagree with anything you're saying. I think to me, this year showed me that Cody is a better chaser and challenger than he is a champ, which is fine with his current role. It's just, that's what you want to see. You want to see that baby underdog. But I have him at my number 4 slot this year. It is Cody Rhodes. Like you said, it's the top guy. We say all of this when Cody Rhodes comes out and we're there or we're watching it on TV, we're wowing. What do you want to talk about? Sometimes his promos can get a little tiresome week after week. You're like, God, Cody, you just said the same stuff last feud and the feud before that. And my dad's Dusty Rhodes, He
wears some damn good suits.
He wears some nice suits. It is the top guy. Like you said, you can put him in there anytime with anybody. He has matches on SmackDown, or the few that he had this year on SmackDown I thought were really good. It was nice to see the champ defending on SmackDown again. Just overall, yeah, I get it. I get people can become tiresome of it. But like you said, I think WWE did fail him. But it's the top guy. I feel like you have to have Cody Rhodes on your list.
Yeah, and that's why number 4 is the only guy who probably gets a louder reaction than him when he walks out the door. Yeet. Number 4, I have Mr. Jey Uso himself. He is the most over guy in the company when you're just talking about watching on television. He walks out, they go absolutely berserk every single time he comes out. His entrances from the crowd, are just the greatest thing ever. Every single time you see it.
Some of those international ones too, with the camera shakes and all that stuff. Oh my
God, it's so good, man. This year he officially established himself as a solo guy for good. He is he won an Intercontinental title. He had feuds with Braun Breaker, Damian Priest. He went up against Damian Priest after WrestleMania for the main title. He had himself an absolute year. He is just he breathed a new life into the main event scene for Raw. He calls himself Main Event Jey Uso, and he's one of those guys where if you throw him in the main event, people immediately watch it. He's officially that guy, and he's on this high in my list because of where he is now versus my personal expectation of where he could end up and be. When they decided to turn him solo, and he was done with the original Roman storyline at the very beginning of Bloodline, and then he went back to the group. I was like, okay, well, that's the end of solo Jey Uso, right?
Mm-hmm.
They tried it. It worked for one good thing, and now we're not going to see that again. Well, then they did it again, and I was like, well, what are they going to do? Well, they separated him, threw him to Raw, and he's absolutely succeeded in every single way. He's blown through my expectations. Top guy, yeet, number 4.
Yeah, I can't argue that. Like I said, he's probably number 6 on my list. Just missed it. But yeah, can't really say anything different. Can't really argue that. It did suck there for a while. You're like, when is Jay going to get some single stuff? You know, could have got the King of the Ring. Could have got this. Could have got that. Things like that. Speaking of honorable mentions, I didn't have Gunther on my list, but Gunther's probably got to be on there.
I didn't have Gunther either. I should have put him on my honorable mentions.
Just popping that in my head as I'm talking about King of the Ring. So we're going to go to my number 3 spot. Somebody that I didn't hear you mention on your honorable mentions, but it's one of your guys. You want to take a guess?
John Cena. I agree. Number 3. He had a great farewell announcement. And I love it. One of my guys.
One of your guys.
One of my guys.
One of your guys
Damian
this year.
Priest.
It is.
Damn right.
Number 3. We talked about Jey Uso with the kind of personal expectations that we had. Damian Priest is the same way. Obviously, he started out the year having the Money in the Bank briefcase. We get that fantastic moment. He gets it at Mania, and then you're like, we looked at each other, watching with a bunch of friends, and we go, oh my God, Damian Priest is now your champion. What are you going to do now?
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what they do. He solidified himself as a main eventer. He took himself from I don't really know what this is going to be. Like you said, a transitional guy, elevated up to a legit guy. Great matches on the mic every week, was really invested into his storylines. He was going on Raw, whether it was tag matches or singles matches or, you name it. Damian Priest was doing it. Everything that we talk about with Cody Rhodes being like the quarterback of SmackDown or WWE, Damian Priest was that for Raw for a while. Now, obviously, he's kind of back in that main title scene, and I don't bat an eye to that. I'm like, okay, yeah, Damian Priest, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have him in my top 5, and he's one of my guys. I love that dude. If I had to really rethink my list and put the honorable mentions, if I had to rank my honorable mentions, I didn't say him, but I'd probably put him at 6. Damian Priest blew us away, as you said. We were very happy when he cashed in successfully. It was a fun moment, but yeah, you're right. We looked at each other like, okay, now what the hell do they do? What do? You trust him. You trust the man. And they absolutely paid off in his trust. I mean, he fought everybody. Jey Uso, Seth Rollins. He fought Gunther, obviously. He was the best part of Judgment Day there for a while, right after Mania when they were still together. I think they really, really missed. I just didn't like the whole Terror Twins breakup period. I thought that how they booked Rhea and Damian was just way too much, basically.
Yeah, and I understand that. For me, it's like, well, you took Damian Priest, who at least, in the beginning, he's in Judgment Day, this heel faction, and now you fast forward to the end of the year, he has completely won everybody over. Now he is a fan favorite. To me, he's had the ups and downs of the year, and he's just succeeded.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, everything that I said about Jay, you can put to him, and maybe even more. It's more personally, Jey Uso is so over with the crowd, to another level. Like Damian's so over. I'm not trying to tear down Damian at all. He's so over with everybody too. But I think Jey Uso is on this level while Damian's on this level, and that's kind of my only separator there. Yeah, I mean, I love Damian Priest. Hell of a year for him, and hopefully, he might even be champion while we're recording this when this comes out. Who knows?
I mean, he's got I didn't put him in the honorable mentions, but for me, it's just
I will rise for him.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to at this point.
Yeah, not in that way.
Especially with previous years, you look at Damian Priest and you're like, yeah, God, breakout year for Damian Priest.
I do kind of miss the arrow.
I do miss
the arrow. Was cool.
The arrow was nice.
Number 3 for me, CM Punk. CM Punk. I mean, the number one question going into 2024 following Survivor Series last year was can CM Punk cut it? You can say what you want about his AEW stint. I was one of the people that said, well, this man clearly doesn't have it anymore. I was not a fan of his matches. I don't think that the AEW style really lended it to him. I mean, I didn't like it. I like AEW, but I just didn't like the CM Punk there. And when he came back to WWE, I was like, well, we'll freaking see. And then the odds were stacked against him because that all those people who were pissed when he debuted, that was shoot. They're actually mad. This guy spent a decade literally shit talking WWE. It happened. Those aren't lies when people do that. So what do? Well, you test him. How do you test him? You throw him against a prime Drew McIntyre at the top of his game, and you say, you know what, we're going to put you in a big match at SummerSlam against him, and then we're going to give you a strap match. You got to try to make that work. And then we're going to give your 40-year-old body a Hell in a Cell match against this behemoth of a man. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have you cut some promos the entire time, even when you're wearing a sling. Like, make it work. And dude knocked it out of the freaking park. Feud of the year by a mile, in my opinion. Hell in a Cell was match of the year by a mile, in my opinion. This dude exceeded every expectation, absolutely proved that he's still the CM Punk that we all know and love. Got to be number 3 on my list.
Yeah, I feel like he's got to make your list some way, somehow.
Yeah.
And that's why I had to put him in at 5, because I was like, I don't really know where else to put him. But yeah, I'm not going to argue 3. It really, he's, like I said, he's got to be on the list. My number 2, I'm going Solo Sikoa.
I love you, Solo.
I also have a / Jacob Fatu in there as well.
Should I just sit here the whole time while you talk?
You know, you sit there and you look at it after Roman loses at Mania, and you're like, well, God, what's next for the Bloodline? How do we do this? What do we do? Insert Solo Sikoa into this, and he's now the tribal chief. Well, okay, well, that didn't really work too much, right? Like, how can they do this again? Mm-hmm. It was a little rough, admittedly, but you talked about Cody with the Bloodline stuff, and you talked about Roman with the Bloodline stuff. You talk about SmackDown. It's mostly been Bloodline 2.0. Solo has really found himself. You know, we talk about breakout roles for Priest or for Jay. This year for Solo, breakout.
Yep.
It definitely was helped by Jacob Fatu. I will say that helps a mile. But Solo itself, he's more confident on the mic. His in-ring is better. He's funny. Like, he's playing the tribal chief role perfectly. Yep. You know, he's got tickets, which I still love. That's still like my moment of the year. Like, it might not be Cody winning at Mania. It might be I got tickets. I love that stuff. Solo, you could take the Bloodline 2.0 name off of it and you could give them some other name. They would be a legit faction with Solo as the head. And he was really kind of that main guy on SmackDown for most of this year, at least. So number 2 for me, it's got to be Solo.
SmackDown was ass after WrestleMania. I'll say it. SmackDown was ass after WrestleMania.
It was not good.
And it felt like they gave Solo nothing to work with. Like, okay, what's the best part of the Bloodline that's still remaining? Okay, well, Jimmy and Paul are still there at least. No, you're going to kill them and throw them out. And then you're just going to have to use these new guys and get them over.
Oh, who are the new guys? They're coming into WWE.
And Tonga Loa, because he had them for a while before he had Jacob Fatu. And it's like, you're giving this guy some rusty old tools and saying build a house with him. And Solo found a way. And he did it by just hitting the nail 100 times. And it didn't work for a while, and it didn't work. And fans didn't like it. And then the nail started to go in, and it started to work. And then he took off, man, and he built the house. And it was like, he is phenomenal now. Every time Solo has a mic in his hand, I love it. I agree with you. He's got a little bit of comedy to him. He's really just established himself as like a new tribal chief. He's completely different from Roman, but it's believable, and his tribe is behind him, so it feels good. I'm completely with you. Solo's great. He should be on your list.
Yeah, and I mean, it really says something that Roman cannot get his tribe to kind of fall in line, but Solo can. I think you have to look at that. Yeah. I mean, Solo has done better in terms of getting people to listen to him.
Get good, Roman.
And then you sit there and you look at it, the Raw on Netflix, we're going to have Roman versus Solo. I mean, you could have originally had that way in the beginning of stuff, and I've been like, well, I don't really care to see that. Like, yeah, it's Roman Reigns, but why would I care about him fighting Solo? Now I'm like, oh my God, we get Roman Reigns versus Solo.
Yeah, that's gonna be so good.
Fantastic.
For the Ufala, what did LA Knight say? The Ufalafel?
I think that's what
Ufalafel.
He said. That's what he said, I think.
My number 2, this is controversial. He's fallen number 2 to me, and it's out of love and respect. I love him to absolute death, and if he's at number 1 on your list, I respect it. He should be at the top of most people's lists, but I have my reasoning for my number 1. Apollo Crews. Drew McIntyre is going to be my number 2. Man, oh man, everything that I just said about CM Punk could not have been done without Drew McIntyre. This man, I mean, if you haven't seen it, it was a pretty sad video of him that went around Twitter and stuff on him basically just saying he gives and gives to this company, and no one reached out to him during a bad time, and people always forget. It's all about what are you doing for us lately, and he's 100% right and all that. Look at this man's career, not just 2024, and it is a story of giving and giving and giving. He never gets his WrestleMania moment. So how does this year start? He gets his WrestleMania moment, but he gives it up to push CM Punk. He drops it. Not only does he push CM Punk with that, he starts the feud with CM Punk. He lets CM Punk have his moment, and then he gives his belt to Damian Priest, who then goes on and has a phenomenal title reign. And then you continue it. He has the feud of the year with CM Punk. Everything that I just said about their matches stands, and it's his job to get this 40-year-old man over who hasn't wrestled in 10 years. It's his job. And that man, CM Punk, was hurt for a lot of it. So what was happening? Drew was showing up without a man to even feud with for a bunch of it. He was showing up into an empty ring and making promos that were beautiful. And he freaking got a wristband over, a bracelet over, as being something more valuable than some of the championships in WWE. That's how good he was. He was smack talking AJ Lee at home and the dog, and he was an absolute fiend. Drew McIntyre has put on some of the best character work that anyone's ever done in a year of wrestling. This is a year that should go up and if they could hang jerseys, they should hang Drew McIntyre's jersey.
Hang his kilt.
Hang his kilt.
Yeah.
Put him at number 2, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, everything you just said is why he is my number 1.
And he should be. I'm glad.
Yeah, I can't add much more to it. The year that he had, especially like at points, like he's like, talking backstage to Adam Pearce, and he's like, oh, well, this person's turning against me. Like, you're going to choose their side. Or you're really not going to choose my side. Like, I'm here for you every week. And at some points, I was like, man, where's he kind of going with this? Like you said, he gets the Mania moment, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. That's cool. Well, then you're going to cost him. Like, how can you do that? Well, it just proceeded to get better and better and better. And like you said, he was in feud of the year with a man that wasn't even in the feud for half the feud. And he had match of the year, in my opinion. So it's like everything with Drew has been fantastic. Everything he's touched has turned to gold. Now coming back as we're recording this, he's coming after Jay and Sammy and those guys, and I'm fantastic. I'm signed up for that. As somebody that wasn't a huge Drew McIntyre fan, the Scottish Warrior never really clicked with me. Like the over-the-top Scottish Warrior. I was like, yeah, it's cool and all, but like I'm missing something. Yeah. This character work from Drew McIntyre is, I wouldn't have probably picked it. I wouldn't have been like, hey, come out and be like a snarky heel, but then also be like a badass. Like, probably wouldn't have been on my list to pick, but you know what? He's done it perfect. And I'm like, this is him perfectly. His interactions on Twitter, on social media, him in the interviews, like you said, he's just been fantastic. And that's why he's got to be my number 1. But since he's not your number 1, I feel like I know who is.
There's no debate for that. I mean, Drew McIntyre is the best. I just want to keep saying that. Like, all love to him. But I think that there was a bigger job that had to be had. There was no bigger job than the job given to this human who did it. My MVP for 2024 is Solo Sikoa. There is no bigger hole in all of wrestling than when Roman Reigns, your champion of 1,316 whatever days it was.
Yeah, you nailed that.
There's no bigger hole to fill than that man. The man who almost single-handedly raised WWE stock to the highest it's ever been. He was gone, and they handed Solo Sikoa the ufalafel right to him, and they said, try to make magic. And he did. He did it. He did it. It's the hardest job in probably the history. It's like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock leaving, and they give it to some random kid and say, just go. Like, Solo couldn't get a good rub from the crowd after he beat John Cena at Crown Jewel. Like, nobody cared about Solo. It just didn't happen. The crowd was not behind Solo through any of this. If anything, Solo was the annoyance that just showed up during every Roman Reigns match. He showed up, he spiked somebody in the corner, and that was that. That's what Solo felt like. And then when he decided, after WrestleMania, when they started the Bloodline 2.0 stuff, nobody liked it either. Everybody hated on it. Mm-hmm. Everybody was like, this guy is Timu Roman. This is not my tribal chief, all this stuff. And then Jacob Fatu showed up. And then Solo started getting his confidence, and his mic work started getting better. And they started putting him in matches more often. And his in-ring started to get better. And when his promo work and his in-ring started getting better, you saw confidence that he just built in himself. And then he added himself some comedy and some spice and created his own tribal chief. And now we're at the point where, like, in all of our predictions, we're always like, well, I want Solo to beat Roman Reigns in this match. It just makes sense. It should be the Bloodline 2.0 going over. It's like, we're here. They did it. He sold us. Bloodline 2.0 is a thing. People love it. There are people who throw up the 1 When Solo walks out to the ring, it happens. That doesn't seem believable. It was the hardest job in wrestling, and Solo filled the gap. I have to do it. He's my MVP.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you. You know, your 1 was my 2, and my 2 was your 1. I think the biggest thing for me is you look at the MVPs. Our 1 and 2, they're not Cody, they're not Gunther, they're not your main title holders as we're filming this. You got somebody that feuded over a necklace with Roman Reigns, basically.
Ooh, falafel.
And then you got somebody that feuded over a bracelet with CM Punk.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay, yeah, sign me up. This is fantastic. I mean, I wouldn't have sat here at the beginning of the year and thought to myself, like, oh, yeah, those are going to be the 2 things that are like the most prized possessions in WWE. But they've done such a fantastic job that they really were, especially the bracelet there for a while. The Ulafala still is.
Ooh, falafel.
You're just going to keep saying that.
Oh,
People are going to be like, oh, this guy's an idiot.
It's the greatest thing ever.
So you look at it. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. It's got to be 1 or 2 for me. Nobody else really kind of belongs on that 1 or 2.
It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart, but I just have to. The job is so. It was such a steep hill to climb for Solo Sikoa, and he somehow did it. I mean, he literally couldn't get the rub when John Cena gave him a rub. Like fans still didn't like him. Yeah, John Cena rubbed off Solo. All I gotta say is, I love you, Solo, and Drew McIntyre. But I love you, Solo. MVP 2024. Hopefully you guys enjoyed our list. 2024 WWE Men's MVP. The Women's MVP list is also out, so go make sure to check that out if you have not. It's a good list as well.
I feel like that list is one of our lists in that video is a little bit more controversial probably than this list. At least we could agree on this one, you know.
Let us know in the comments what your guys' MVPs are. Give us a top 10, top 15, top 50. I don't care. I want to see all of them. It's awesome. Let us know what you think about our opinions and if we're stupid. Mostly me because I didn't pick Drew McIntyre, but follow us on all of our socials at COD WrestlePod, COD WrestlePod. Listen to us wherever you get your podcast at, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, etc. And come follow us on Twitch, twitch.com/COD WrestlePod to watch Raw on Netflix with us. We will then be having Raw, SmackDowns, and all PLEs streamed live. Watch along with y'all. Thank you for all the support on all of our socials. We appreciate the hell out of you. I'm Will. That's Brandon. We're the Cousins of Destruction Wrestling Podcast. We will see you next time.